You ready, Amanda? It's 7. All right. Sorry? Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Colwood for Monday, November 25th. Oh, shoot. I thought it was Michael. You fooled me. It was Brent. That's right. Monday, November 25th at 7 p.m. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish People. I am looking for approval of the agenda, please.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jensen, seconded by Councillor Logan. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Oh, no, excuse me. Public participation. Members of the public will be provided an opportunity to present concerns or ask questions of council. Comments pertaining to a matter that has been the subject of a public hearing, especially earlier this evening, are prohibited where the bylaw related to the matter has not been presented to council for consideration of adoption. Saying that, is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment this evening? Nope. All right. Then I will move on to Mayor's message. This, to the public, this is the last week to get grants and aid applications in for community nonprofits who enhance quality of life for Colwood residents by promoting safety, health, arts and culture, economic diversity, or environmental care. The deadline is November 30th. There has been ads in the paper and online. Council does look forward to reviewing the applications in January as part of our budget deliberations. Also, I just wanted to let everybody know that the Colwood Christmas Light Up is happening not this Thursday, but Thursday, December 5th. Come out for hot chocolate and hot dogs from Redbound Market, treats from Royal Bay Bakery, crafts from West Shore Parks and Rec, and there's a visit. We booked the big guy. So Santa's coming down from the North Pole just for that evening, so we're quite happy about that. Also, I would like you to encourage the community to watch for information about a holiday light display that will be built this winter at Herm Williams Park. And there should be some hot chocolate and caroling during the holidays happening at that park as well. One of the things I'm very excited to tell council, as well as the public, is the last two events that I just mentioned, the Colwood Christmas Light Up and the Holiday Light Display, we now have a title sponsor. Ani Group has stepped up and is the title sponsor for both of those events. So we are very appreciative that we have some corporate neighbors who are willing to contribute back into our community. There are many great events happening in Colwood throughout the holidays at Coast Collective Art Gallery. There's music at local churches, there's craft fairs, and much more. Please go to colwood.ca/events for more details. And finally, join the conversation at Let's Talk Colwood. Tonight we'll be hearing about the strategic plan. Many of the initiatives in the plan will be hot topics that can be discussed at Let's Talk Colwood. So don't miss out. Looking to council, is there anything that any councillor would like to share? Councillor Parkinson?
I just thought I'd mention, after our previous discussion on step code and the implementation of it, I did have a chance to go down to Royal Bay Watch doing blower test to see how tight the house was. That was informative. And I also had an invitation to go to a Built Green seminar in one of the houses being constructed in Langford. And you know, there's more to this subject probably than I grasped to begin with. So I know we're talking of having some discussions and review, but I think we're going to have to wrestle with, you know, which path to go down. I probably wasn't thinking that at the last meeting. So I guess we have time, and we should all sort of wrestle with how we're going to upgrade the standards in Colwood.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to 5, adoption and the receipt of minutes. Before I look for a motion, there is one correction, and that correction is regarding the resolution for the Winter Wonderland lighting display. It should have read the 2019/2020 Winter Wonderland Holiday Light Display instead of 2020, because the event is actually happening this year, not a year from now. So with that one correction, may I have a motion to adopt the November 12th minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, seconded by Councillor Jensen. Any other errors, omissions, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. We have a presentation from the Society for the Arts on the Vancouver Island, and I'd like to invite Lori Davis to come on up.
Hi, my name is Laura Davis. Do I need to say where I live and that sort of thing?
You can tell them after if you don't want to say it for the.
Okay. Laura Davis, I'm the treasurer of the Society for Arts on the South Island. Good evening, and Mayor and Council, and thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak with you about our organization that's in your community. I'd like to introduce that Sheila Linteman is here. She's our past president, and our new executive director, Gillian Villapi.
There.
So the Coast Collective is to nurture British Columbia arts and culture on the southern Vancouver Island through production and support of showcases fine art and craft. And when I say that, a lot of the art and craft is adjudicated before it reaches the inside of our building. Provision of arts and education programs, as well as public performances and special community cultural events. Our vision is to promote arts and culture, connecting community members of all ages through creative expression and exploration. The gallery exhibits, gift shop, showcase bring talented, emerging artists as well as established artists and artisans to the public at an accessible location in your local community in Colwood. The Coast Collective Arts Center initiative has been in existence for many years. Its original location was at the Pendray House on the Esquimalt Lagoon. We are currently a not-for-profit organization. The Coast Collective Arts Center is an initiative of the Society of the Arts on the South Island. It's quite a hub of activity for the arts. Local artists showing their work in gallery exhibits throughout the year. Gift shop artists contributing their creative art for sale locally, and education to artists both new and already highly skilled. This is a place where they all connect, and it resides in your community. We connect community members of all ages, children, youth, and adults, through creative expression and explorations of showcasing art, art education, and local community art collaborations. Formed in late 2008 as the Coast Collective Arts Center, it represents arts and culture on the West Shore, and of course, as I indicated, was located originally at the Pendray House. Phase 2 found the Coast Collective, establishing as a creative collaboration between a local group of artists and Calgarian developer Randy Royer and the Pacific Landing Project. The organization has now grown to become a going concern for arts on the West Shore and beyond. With our change in organizational structure to a not-for-profit, we now reflect an accurate depiction of our arts and culture. And we're working with the Westridge Landing, Len and Lloyd Wansborough over the past several years. It's allowed grace in our lease cost in order to assist us in our growth. So we very much appreciate that collaboration. In January of 2016, the Coast Collective Arts Center opened their new custom-built gallery, artisan gift shop, and classroom space co-located in the Holiday Inn Express and Suites. The Coast Collective has welcomed thousands of visitors, locally and beyond, each year to discover the arts. The Coast Collective has over 100 members who give many hours, volunteer hours, to deliver visual arts programming. So this is where we are, and I'm sure you all know this. One of the things we're really proud of is our art shows. This is an example of In Bloom, which has happened for several years in the springtime. We showcase many of our local artists here in this gallery. Some are rentals and some are open calls to people to come in and bring a show together with lots of local artists. This is an artist that's an international artist that we did bring in recently this year. This is also a gallery show where we put poets and artists together. This is a recent gallery show as well in what we call our Westridge Gallery. And what we do there is feature our membership. And 3 of the artists here, well actually 2 of them are some of the original artists who started this organization back in 2008. And I believe you have Deb Chernecki's stuff out in your foyer right now. So what's going on right now for us is we have Gifts and Wishes, which is an expansion really of a gift shop. And it does include a lot of paintings as well, and not just 3D and 2D, like pottery and that sort of thing. So it becomes sort of a Christmas area to come and purchase gifts, which is adjudicated gifts as well. Then one thing that I'd like to highlight is the Children's Art Show, which occurs every year in April. And this has been going on for about 5 years. We have over 100 kids involved in these art show, the children and the youth. This is an example of some of the fabulous work that they do. And some of them are this high, and they're creating beautiful work. And in this show, what we like to do is highlight their creativity with awards and special recognition. So we actually hang their art in the gallery as a gallery show. So there you can see some of the youth. That was actually, the art completely fills the entire area when the youth come. And Cynthia has come and assisted us with giving out awards in the past. And these are some of the kids in the youth art show that got awards. We've also done some community events. We've been up at Bear Mountain. We've been at Mother's Day Royal Roads, Eats and Beats. So various things. This was up at Bear Mountain. This is Royal Roads. And we try to bring some of our art with us, demonstrating or bringing children's activities. And of course, this is Eats and Beats. And I guess the Seaside Festival didn't occur this last time, but we were involved with that previously for plein air painting. We did something new this last year, which was a Galloping Goose event, and it was an outdoor event, and we tried to tie into the Galloping Goose and the people bike riding on there, and we'd like to look at that again for something to expand for Colwood. Education classes, a huge part of the Coast Collective. 113 classes in 2018. I don't have a number for you right now for 2019, but I'm sure it's well up there. So we have 38 different instructors, and these classes go on continuously and are filled. We need more space, basically. And this is one of the classes. This is sort of a picture of the gift shop. Gives you a snapshot looking out into the gallery on the other side. But it shows you in the gift shop the types of art that you can see. There's quite a few different kinds of art with which a person can come and select gifts or just come and enjoy the art themselves. So the membership, it's an interesting thing with the membership is that we've got quite a few members, as you can see, but the volunteer members are 68. That's been pretty consistent over the last couple years, which is really commendable for volunteers to stay with the organization and put their time in. We're talking time to come in and help people purchase at the cash register, to hang the art, to paint the walls, all those things. We've got a lot of volunteers doing that. In fact, there's over 8,000 hours of volunteer time in 2018, and that's a big number. I don't think it's been said enough so that people are aware of that. Just looking at our revenue base, this kind of gives you an idea of how, the impact of the education classes as far as our revenue stream. Some of the areas, though, we'd like to, of course, increase is our community outreach. So in that case, we would like to be able to move into some other streams of funding to allow us to do projects in the community. A lot of the education classes, any surplus that we receive on that basically covers our administration costs. Not quite, but pretty close, which is a lovely thing. So this is our almost current board. We're missing one person. Our executive director on the right, myself, Catherine Fudge in the purple sweater, she's the president, and Sheila, our past president, and Marge, and Nikki Green, and then Jessica Stein, also one of our staff members who's been with the collective for about 2.5 years now, I believe. So I think the important thing about our organization right now is that, we would just like to thank the City of Colwood first for the tax exemption, which has also allowed us to keep the doors open. Letters of support that you've given us, and inclusion, collaborations with Eats and Beats, inviting us to come, inviting us also to the festival, the Seaside Festival you've had in the past. And Row Roads is part of Colwood as well, and just the invitations from Row Roads to be a part of their events as well. We are most excited to continue the work that is currently going on, and we'd like to expand with new ideas for the community. To showcase our local and South Island artists, bring arts more out to the community, provide education space for new artists, and we especially would like to look at children and youth. We look forward to direction from you as to how we can enhance our local Colwood community arts programs, to give special experiences through our programming, possibilities of hosting an artist in residence, possibilities of commissioned art structures, permanent installations, and hopefully be a part of the development as an arts group, possibly in the form of a gallery or teaching space for the City of Colwood, in the City of Colwood, as it begins to develop its waterfront property. I'd just like to leave you with a quote before I go. Arts and culture make considerable and necessary contributions to the well-being of communities. Arts and culture are powerful tools with which to engage communities in various levels of change. They are means to public dialogue, contribute to the development of communities' creative learning, create healthy communities capable of action, provide a powerful tool for community mobilization and activism, and help build community capacity and leadership. And that's a quote from Creative City Network of Canada. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know I speak for all the council when we say we very much appreciate you being in our community. You definitely add value, not only from a quantitative, but from a qualitative standpoint. So we very much appreciate the contributions, not only the organization, but the volunteers do for the City of Colwood. So thank you. Looking to council, does anyone have any questions? Councillor Kobayashi?
Thanks very much, Lori. That was a great presentation. If you asked me a year ago and how I feel and how I do today, it's I've just 180 degrees apart from where I was a year ago. Believe me, I understand the importance of organizations like yours to our social infrastructure. Extremely important. And my question is quickly: is it your organization? Is it just visual arts? So the fine arts, who looks after that in in the Western communities right now?
Well, we are primarily focused on visual arts. We are in discussions on having some impact and creating some events with other aspects of the arts. Probably more in the cultural side, heritage aspect. The West Shore Arts Council was mandated, as I understood in the past, to deliver some of the other aspects of overall the variety of arts. But yes, our focus is on visual, but I'm not going to say that we're not going to entertain other aspects if we can help the city of Colwood. I think we can work with that. Yeah. You're welcome.
Thanks. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's lovely to see all the pictures. I know when I was there for the children's art events, pretty astounding what some of our youth can create. I'm just wondering, when you were saying about space being your issue and your educational classes, have you looked at working with Royal Bay High or any of the other schools for maybe some space opportunities?
We have not looked at the high schools yet, no, but we certainly can do that, yeah.
Because they have some pretty amazing spaces, even just in the lobby, the foyer of Royal Bay. In terms of a venue, you might find some connections, and maybe even with West Shore Parks and Rec.
Right.
Because
yes.
they're doing a lot of youth outreach, and you guys have the expertise, so.
Yeah, we did actually go over into Langford for a while last year. It just filled up with kids, just jam-packed, the whole room. We couldn't fit them in. So we know it's a need. So we're hoping with our new executive director we can do some of that research. But yeah, school's a good idea. Royal Bay. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks for attending. Moving on then, 7.1, correspondence requiring council directions. We have a letter from the mayor of the city of Victoria, Mayor Helps, regarding safer drug supplies and observed inhalation, thank you, inhalation sites. What's the will of council?
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jensen, seconded by Councillor Day. Discussion? Yep.
Sorry, Your Worship, but I do have some experience in these matters in a professional capacity, and I can tell you that a medical model or approach to this is a move in the right direction, and I recommend strongly that we support this initiative by the City of Victoria, who experiences the brunt of this for our region, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to comment that I certainly agree. I've attended a number of sessions at AVICC and UBCM talking about what the options are around overdose prevention options, and there's certainly a focus on this at the BC School-Centered Mental Health Coalition. We have heard about the province undertaking 4 pilot projects. One is in the Comox Valley. And there's, I think, 2 on the island, 2 on the mainland, that they're looking at youth centers that offer supports. So we will very soon have more information on what is being tried and perhaps some different models for support services, especially when young people need to have access to detox options, etc. So I think that this is really something that we want to make sure that our voice is heard on. There's needs in every community in BC, and Colwood is not exempt, and I think that it's really important that we pull together to ensure that especially our youth are still around to solve their problems a couple years down the road.
Thank you. I am going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.1, business license bylaw. This is a recommendation that came from the committee of the whole meeting of November 4th. We do have a recommendation before us. with the will of council. Councillor Kobayashi.
I move the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, second by Councillor Logan. Any discussions? Councillor Day?
Just a question for staff. Are we planning to have a regular review in terms of whether or not the funding for this is covering off our actual costs? Because some of it extends well beyond our boundaries. So I'm just wondering if we're planning to follow up on whether or not we're getting full cost recovery.
We can certainly follow up, and we do quarterly reports through development services, and because business licenses now in our ballpark, we'll be including that as well. We could look at maybe a 5-year period as to testing it and seeing how it goes and reporting back to council.
Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Moving on to 8.2, this is regarding a community garden expansion request. We have a recommendation from staff that be authorized, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the amended licensing to occupy agreement with the updated maps.
So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? Councillor Baxter, then Day.
I'd just like to say I really like food. And for the first time, I've eaten 12 months in a row out of the garden. And I think everybody should have that opportunity if they can. And I think these gardens are perfect for that. And they seem to be serving the purpose. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that I'm just so thrilled. The gardens were actually started by a youth who was at Wishart Elementary with my kids, and she managed to do a lot of hard work to get it off the ground while she was at university. She's now left the area to go on to other endeavors, but her legacy is still with us. And one of the fabulous things about the garden is that there are a lot of volunteers who are working together, and they're supporting the kids from the school to come and learn about things. So it's a really wonderful initiative, and the expansion doesn't negatively impact, I think, any uses that are going on here at City Hall. So it's a real win-win for the community, and certainly a real benefit to get some intergenerational connections going.
Through the mayor, just a quick question to you, Richard. Is there plans to maybe try to expand this throughout the community? Because I think it's phenomenal. Like out in Royal Bay, maybe something in the older parts of Colwood, if possible. I'm a big fan of this, so.
There are no plans that we're aware of through the Garden Society yet. It would be supported through our official community plan to see it established in other areas.
I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposes. 8.3, this is in regards to 570-571 Bezanton Way regarding a development agreement modification. I will look to Mr. Moeller.
Thank you. This is a consideration for 570-571 Bezanton Way to amend the development agreement and modify it as it sits. Presently, there is a section in the development agreement that speaks to green buildings and includes items such as Energuide 80 ratings, energy consumption, geothermal heating requirements, and on-demand water systems, net zero energy usage, and requirements for intensive and extensive green roofs. The developer who's in attendance tonight has actually spoke about some challenges and has requested council consideration to remove those requirements of the development agreement, specifically the Energuide 80 rating for energy consumption, geothermal heating requirements, and on-demand water heating systems, net zero energy usage and requirements for the intensive and extensive use of green roofs, and replace those requirements with step 3 of the building code energy step code requirement, which has been a standard consideration that's come forward to council in the recent times.
Thank you.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jensen, seconded by Councillor Kobayashi. Discussion? Councillor Baxter, then Day.
I support the removal of the requirement for geothermal heating, as I've seen little evidence that this is actually cost effective for either the builder or the owner as compared to many alternatives available. But I would argue that the current requirements in the zoning were part of a negotiation at the time that this was rezoned, which was presumably satisfactory to both the developer and the city. And to take all that and reduce it to level 3 only, which is nowhere near as expensive as that package, is on the face of it a pretty big plus for the developer. The green roof and geothermal alone are expensive undertakings. Now, I agree that knowing what we know today, this is more onerous than we're making anyone else do, and this developer does have to compete in the existing market. But also we have to allow the fact that the land value at the time it was rezoned, the land cost was lower than it would be today. And presumably the developer paid the land cost knowing the requirement placed on him by the rezoning, so presumably took that into account. So all in all, I'm not in favor of removing everything listed and just leaving level 3. So I'm going to suggest a compromise of level 3 plus 110 volt plugs for every parking space to allow overnight EV charging, plus 10 eco passes to encourage bus routes, bus use. So
Sorry, are you making that as an amendment, Councillor Baxter?
yes, I would like to make that as amendment, and I'll repeat it if necessary.
Okay, I'm just looking.
So it would be,
Hold on, sorry, I'm just looking at staff. Do you need it repeated?
is it good?
You do need, yeah, please, go ahead.
Okay,
Read it.
so after level 3, it should say plus 110 volt plugs for every parking space, and 10 eco passes to encourage bus use. 10. Oh, yeah.
All right, I have a mover for the amendment, seconder to that. Councillor Parkinson has seconded that. So we now are starting a new list of discussion on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councillor Day, then Kobayashi.
Thank you. I think the amendment goes some ways to making me feel a little better about this. When we were in Vancouver at UBCM, my hotel room was looking over at the green roof that the BC government built on the, whatever it is called, I think it's called the West Convention Center. Anyways, big convention center with a big green roof. And I was watching in September as they're mowing the roof, which is quite exciting. And when this was proposed as a development, we were really hoping that we would be able to see some of our roofs being green and being able to have development look more natural and be somewhat green in and of itself. So I'm not sure what the issue is. I trust that if the developer has an issue with it, that there must be an issue. I'm not thinking that they're stringing us along, but I also toured a number of developments in downtown Victoria, including a commercial development that was building at Step Code 4, and a lot of those innovations are very attainable within the envelope of a building that wouldn't cause any type of insurance issues, and do give back to the community in terms of lower energy use over time, and certainly to the owner of the unit for being more cost effective. So as it stands, I support the amendment because it's moving us towards a little bit higher standard, and that was what we were trying to get at in negotiating the covenant.
Councillor Kobayashi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way I look at this a little bit differently, I can sort of half support what you want to do. You know, the electrical plugins make sense to me. It really does make sense. But, you know, step code 3 is what I look at is what, you know, we basically as a council have agreed to as the standard that we're trying to achieve by, it hasn't gone through and everything, but by next year. And I believe that's the standard. And, you know, when they came up with this standard called green buildings, I don't really think, you know, at that time, we sort of shot for the sky and sort of said, this is what we're going to do. And I think in all fairness, keeping everyone on the same playing field, you know, the things that we're demanding now is, you know, we're looking forward to is the step code 3. And we are asking for people to put, you know, plugins now. That's the way the world's going. So I sort of support you up until that point. I don't know about these eco passes because, you know, first come, first serve. I'd rather see them all buy electric bikes for them, you know, so, but, you know, I support it up to the electrical plugins.
Councillor Parkinson.
That damn Kobayashi steals my thunder. Because I followed your logic there, Michael, and I appreciate it. I agree. I thought you found a nice balance. I think the step code 3 is still a step, and to substitute that for some of the earlier requirements made a lot of sense. The 110 volt plugins again is frankly not that big of a step. You know, you could go for the 220 quick chargers, but I think a good compromise to go with the 110. And like Councillor Kobayashi, the eco bus passes, that's a marketing thing. If the developer thinks he gets some value out of it and wants to do it, go ahead. But if somebody wanted to amend the amendment to take that out, I would certainly not complain.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the amendment then. All those in favor? Opposed? No, nobody opposes. Then that takes us to the main motion. Councillor Day.
Right. So just in terms of the step code and understanding what the implications are, I'll just take you back to when I first started on council back in 2002. The CRD was building their brand new building on Fiskard Street, and that was a LEED standard building. So that is almost 18 years ago now that we are talking about building green. It is possible. It is doable. There is a green roof on the CRD building. I'm not aware of any problems. Maybe there are some, but I have not been made aware of them. And at that time, the big change was trying to get to rainwater harvesting for urinals use, etc. So we haven't gone that route, but there certainly have been other green roofs, and I would be very appreciative. I will support the motion as it's going forward here tonight because I think we're making an improvement towards a greener infrastructure. But at the same time, I would sure like to understand what the issues are around green roofs and whether or not that's something that's doable or achievable, because it's been something the community's been looking for quite a while, and we haven't seen it come to fruition.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor on the main motion? All those opposed? Nobody opposes. 8.4, Mrs. Collison. This is regard the CRD Regional Growth Strategy, Bylaw number 4017 amendment.
So I just have 2 slides for you tonight. So the proposed RGS amendment is to replace this table. So this table was part of the non-binding arbitration process that some of you may remember from early 2018. This table is compiled on 2011 data that is out of date. Earlier this year, 2018 data became available, and during the non-binding arbitration process, member municipalities agreed that this table would be updated.
Sorry, may I interrupt? Do we have any ability to zoom on that?
Oh,
I
sorry.
can't. I
You know what?
cannot see any of those
We're
numbers.
going to go to this table. Is that better? So
Still
they are included in the agenda package as, let's see, Appendix 2. And then, I guess, Appendix 4. Essentially, the big change is it went from municipal to sub-regional. So that's the one we're at right now. And now we're back to what we were under the previous regional growth strategy of core, peninsula, and West Shore. There is growth predicted, which lines up with our recent Colwood demographic study, so staff are supportive of this. And then tonight we request that you offer a comment. And if it is a comment of support, staff will prepare a letter and return that to the CRD during the open comment period, which expires on December 23rd.
So the recommendation is be received, that this report be received, and that staff prepare a letter of comment in support of Bylaw 4017 amendment. May I have that motion, and then I'll go to discussion. Thank you, Councillor Kobayashi. Seconded by Councillor Logan. Discussion. I'll give you a chance. Did you want to? No, you don't want to motivate. I'll go to seconder. No, Councillor Parkinson, then Day.
First, I wonder about the non-binding dispute resolution that sort of triggered this. Can you give us some background on that?
So that was, I have the previous report here. So that occurred in February of 2018, and there was a number of items that came out of the most recent regional growth strategy that was adopted in 2018. So this was one of them, and essentially all municipalities have to accept a regional growth strategy for it to move forward. There was items that different municipalities did not agree with, but not to the point in which they were going to legislatively stop the process and have it referred to the province. So this is just one of the non-binding items. If it was binding, it would be referred upward.
So I noticed that the population change in the West Shore is 50%, compared to 13 for the peninsula and 14 for the core. And I guess I wonder about the concept of foisting all that density and growth onto the West Shore as opposed to the core, for instance. Especially a CRD report that is supposedly looking at the region. If you're looking at the region and thinking that density has some value, this is absolutely non-dense from a regional perspective. It may be dense from looking at a Colwood, we're densifying Colwood, but from a regional perspective, it's obviously less dense to put more people further away from the core. So is there any kickback to this at all? Does council have any concerns about the fact that, we're looking at substantially more increase in population than the other areas? Maybe not.
Councillor Day.
Thanks. I was, the CRD numbers have been difficult historically. Many of the forecasts that they've predicted have not lined up with what our history has been. And there are a number of differences. If you drill down through the CRD's regional growth strategy and have a look comparing Colwood to Langford, for example, Colwood is coming out being a lot more dense with much less economic development potential, fewer jobs, fewer services in Colwood. So I am concerned that it's very difficult to be heard at the CRD table, and the needs of our community are not well understood at the CRD. There is an assumption, oh yeah, you live out there and there's traffic. Well, there's traffic everywhere, but the number of people who must commute in order to live here is increasing. And I don't know that any of the work that's gone into the regional growth strategy is helping us in address any of that in the future. Some of the big holes in the regional growth strategy are related to our First Nations communities, and they really are not planned for under the regional growth strategy. And so there's a number of places that are exempt from it being applied to them. So I don't know if staff have looked at what does this mean, 20 years from now in terms of the balance between residential, commercial, and industrial uses in our region.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter. Oh, sorry, Mike.
I prefer to be called Michael.
Sorry.
If we approve this amendment to the regional OCP, I assume that we are not committing to actually achieve these population targets. However, I presume also that the CRD, when making any calculations regarding regional infrastructure, such as sewage treatment or sewer mains, will assume that these numbers will be achieved. What I'd like to know is whether staff have considered whether this is likely to lead in the near to midterm to the CRD planning to add capacity to their existing services for us, and therefore placing additional charges on us.
Through your worship, yes, you're exactly correct. The population growth numbers that are being tabled here are the first stab at the CRD trying to project out growth to 2045. The 2045 consideration for the sewage treatment plant is the terminal life of the treatment plant is presently designed, and by that point in time they actually want another plant out here on the West Shore, which is based and predicated on the numbers that you're seeing before you here. Whether we achieve that or not is part of our carrying capacity of our present allotment for the sewer as considered. But that is essentially how they're going and projecting forward into those numbers. And yes, correctly, the CRD is proposing a DCC for the sewer collection system so that they can pre-fund that 2045 decision.
So, in other words, when those proposals come up at the CRD table, we need to have a really good look at them to see whether we still agree with the numbers they're using. I know this came up with the original sewage treatment plant, where they made assumptions which really haven't borne out, because it's been a number of years since the first proposal, and Colwood went back to them and said, no, please reduce ours by some significant number. And it appears that that was a good decision, since we're all paying less as a result. But I just caution that we all need to be aware that when these things come up at CRD, we need to look at that really, really carefully, because it will mean more money. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'm going to go to motion. Councillor Day, is this, so you've already spoken once.
I know, I was looking to get an answer to my question. You just moved on in regards to the split between the residents, pardon me, and the employment numbers.
So
Have they been looked at?
So we recently undertook the demographic study and land yield analysis, and because of this is done at the sub-regional level and they were compiled by BC Statistics, and they all are showing trending positively, we haven't looked in detail at those numbers other than the fact that they line up with our general direction that we are going as a community. The other thing I will just clarify as well, this is a referral for comment. As part of the regional growth strategy amendment process, later on, you'll have a referral for acceptance. And so you'll have the opportunity to accept later on. So this is the opportunity to provide comment back to the CRD if there are any questions, comments, or concerns about the proposed amendment.
So my comment that I would like to see reflected back to the CRD is that when they're lumping us all together as a West Shore municipality, it is very difficult for us to look at those numbers and know if they're proposing to charge us for something that's actually going to be used by a different municipality. And that is the crux of the problem, that the land yield analysis that we have has not been looked at in detail. And we need to start being a little more on top of it in terms of ensuring that our numbers reflect what we're actually going to get, because it is true that the sewer cost is going to be put on based on these numbers. And it is true that the CRD, when they go to building that new sewer plant, none of the rest of those guys are going to contribute a dime towards what's required out here in the West Shore.
Well, that's actually incorrect. We had a meeting with the CRD just last week with staff, and it was expressed by Bob Lapham, who's the CAO, that this would be a cost share throughout the entire region, and that the capacity would be based on how much capacity you're using within the region. So the plant is presently going to be funded by the region, not by the West Shore. That has been the last thing that has been communicated to us by the CRD. And that was just last week. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.5. Oh, excuse me. Councillor Day opposed. Thank you. Moving on to Greater Victoria Labour Relations Association appointments. Councillor Parkinson was the GVLRA appointed person. Councillor Kobayashi was the alternate. I would suggest that those two should stay as the primary and alternate.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. And may I just clarify, who is the delegate for the annual general meeting? It can't be me. It is Dean?
Presently, it is Mayor Martin.
Okay.
So we would be looking for a new appointment for a delegate to the AGM. It can be the same person as the director.
It can be now.
Yes, it can.
Okay. Then, yeah, so go ahead, Doug.
I'd like to move that Stuart be the delegate then.
So we'll add that as a friendly amendment on it, so that it is, Stewart is the primary, Councillor Parkinson is the primary, Councillor Kobayashi is the alternate, and Councillor Parkinson will be the delegate for the annual general meeting. Any discussion?
Need a seconder?
I had a seconder. It was Dean and Stewart. Stewart, you seconded it, correct? Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Director of Service, Corporate Services to 2020 meeting schedule. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Each year, the city is required by legislation to adopt and publish a notice of the regularly scheduled council and committee of the whole meetings. This year, we have a little bit of an anomaly in that, in addition to council and committee of the whole, council is considering bringing 5 new committees on stream. 2 have been established and 3 are pretty close to being established through the strategic planning process. 3 of the strategic planning committees are comprised solely of council members. So the purpose of this report is to consider these committees, the existing and the new committees, and seek direction from council on the preferred meeting schedule. Use it as an opportunity for council to consider current and future meeting commitments alongside existing workloads, time pressures, and public involvement in city meetings. So the staff report that you have before you provides 4 options. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list, and it does speak to opportunities and weaknesses associated with each option. As you deliberate on those, I can certainly answer any questions that you may have or provide additional information. Amanda has the 4 options up on the screen, and as you focus on one, she can also bring up the preferred wording if you're willing to go with that option. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Council.
Thank you. What is the will of council? Councillor Baxter.
I first have a question. why is it necessary to have 5 to 7 members on the Transportation, Economic Prosperity, and Finance and Government committees?
Yes, as the CAO and I were just discussing, this is something that was recommended through the strategic planning process, that it be comprised solely of council members, given the decision-making rationale behind it. But you will have the opportunity to make those decisions when we firmly establish the committees.
Okay, so I've just done some calculations, and if each of these committees only had 2 councillors on, then taking into account the other 2 as well, the addition of all these committees would add 1.5 new meetings per month for each councillor, and that's assuming they met every month. And if there were 3 councillors on those committees, it would be 2 meetings per month. If it was 5, it would be 3 meetings per month per councillor. And certainly I've seen a committee system work before with 3 councillors on each committee, I think it was. And I think the whole idea of a committee should be that it people can specialize a bit in these things and then report up to the bigger committee or to council and explain what they've already discussed and recommended. So I'm going to propose option 1.
We're just going to get it on the board, and then I'll go Councillor Day next. We're just going to do a quick, Councillor Baxter, since you picked option 1, can you just clarify, option 1 is just basically status quo?
Status quo and schedule new committees as they come on stream, which I think is relevant because you'll know who's on the committee then.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just want to say that I do not support holding meetings during the day when the public can't be in attendance. I know that there's a lot of reliance on webcasting and so forth of meetings, but it's not the same as being able to be a participant. And I have found it, I know it's difficult to have lots of committee meetings, and I don't wish to meeting everybody to death, but at the same time, I want to enable us to all have a participatory role, including the residents, in understanding what direction we're recommending that the committee go in. So I can agree with this, but what I don't like to see happen is that some members of council bear more of a role and other members of council get put off to the side.
Thank you. I think I'm going to be influenced pretty heavily by my working colleagues, and anybody should perhaps talk a little bit about how this may or may not impact their work lives. I would be happy to meet in the afternoons on Monday. I think I kind of like the idea of the focused committees with a large chunk of council on them. So I would sort of like to see them fit in. If we could fit all the meetings in on a Monday in some fashion, that would be preferable for me rather than too many more evenings. And you know, Councillor Day, I listened to your concern for public participation, and I recognize it as I glance out at 3 staff members, a reporter, and a developer sitting here. I'm not sure we're, you know, we're not creating that great of a service for by having meetings in the evening. So perhaps the webcast has taken over from some of the other things. So again, I think to me, let's if our working colleagues say Monday afternoon meetings are absolutely impossible, then I'm prepared to move forward from that. If
Thank you. Councillor Logan, then Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. As one of the two that still hold down a meaningful job,
I guess mine's not
and have some sort of schedule. The director of corporate services and I did have a conversation about how flexible the opportunity was for me to take some time off. Later Monday, excuse me, does work, and and I also want to point out that the meeting schedule as it stands hasn't changed. You know, our 7 o'clock meeting schedule hasn't changed since I've been involved for the most part. And that really caters to a certain sect of the working public. It doesn't cater to a shift worker, somebody that works nights, and this is coming from somebody that works in the healthcare field, who is constantly excluded from attending these types of meetings because of their shift work. So I think there is an opportunity to actually open up these meetings to a whole different sect of people and the population, and make it more inclusive. And you know what? We run a PDSA on this and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we need to adjust. We can do that. But I don't think we should slam the door on it and not consider alternatives. So I am happy to be flexible with my work schedule, to be able to attend something later on in the Monday. And I also do respect the impact of, on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 staff members here. That comes with a cost, and so I'm happy to look at an alternative. Thank you.
Councillor Jensen.
I too have a regular job I have to go to, but Madam Corporate Officer, Mondays we can play around with Mondays. As my schedule is Tuesday to Friday. So I would be open to jamming some more in the afternoon, perhaps later after before council meetings, if that helps.
So I will I'll comment where I'm coming from with this. First of all, my wife will be surprised that I don't have a job, because as far as she knows, I'm still working. But I guess I'm not. Yeah, meaningful job. Yeah. I reflect the views of some of the councillors this evening. When I'm at CRD on Wednesdays, we have more public attending a 1 p.m. meeting than we do in the evenings here. So I'm not, now of course that's a larger population too, so there's a bigger base coming from it. But I have not heard issues from residents concerned if we were to have a daytime meeting. I have asked. Just in general, just to sort of touch base with people. I haven't had any negative reaction to it. I think there's a lot of efficiencies. Since being mayor, I've spent a fair amount of time more at City Hall. And I tell you, you start to burn out when you're here all day and then you stick around for an evening meeting. It's a very long day. And if we have that ability to shift some of that and save the taxpayers money, save some of our staff so that they're not burning out, so they're able to actually participate in meetings during work hours, I think that adds a lot of quality of life, a lot of value to the city. I'm not saying everything needs to be daytime, but I think there are some opportunities that we could definitely utilize. So I am certainly supportive of actually, I think I'm supportive of option 3 myself, which would be shifting that. Councillor Baxter, you've already spoken once. I would really like to get to a motion of some sort. So if you're prepared to move a motion, and then we can have further discussion.
Oh, so I move option 1.
All right, do I have a seconder for option 1?
I'll second.
All right. Second for discussion. So we have a new list. Councillor Baxter, do you wish to speak to it?
I understand the difficulties of full-time job. I emphasize full-time job and also being on council. But I look at today, and we could easily be in this room for 5 hours today, and that's status quo. And then if we add another, say, committee of the whole in front of or behind that, Now, that's an awfully long time to sit deliberating and making good decisions. We can carry on making decisions for hours, but I think the quality might suffer if we actually piled that much into one day.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day?
Thanks. I have heard from the public quite a bit, fairly often, about even when we tried to hold meetings at 6 o'clock, that was too early for people who work full-time to be able to come and give their input. And I think that is really important. I have also very aware of the meeting burnout, and not just for staff, but for us, because after a while, there's only so many, so long that you can focus and make good decisions. And a big part of making those good decisions for me is related to the preparation ahead of time. So when there's too many meetings on the same day, I find that my preparation starts to get pressured. And even though we've made some improvements in terms of having agendas out sooner so that preparation work can get spread out over a few days, I'm probably one of the people with the most flexible schedules, but I still have a lot on my plate, and so do staff. So I just think that maybe there's another way to help staff in terms of with burnout, which might mean that maybe you don't start at 7 in the morning on a day when you're going to be here till after 8 o'clock at night. So there's more than one way to address the staff burnout issue. And I think that it's really important that our meetings don't get so long that we're not being able to be as effective as we could be.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. This is, I'm sorry. This is on option 1. So what's been moved is option 1. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Parkinson, Councillor Logan, Councillor Jensen, Mayor Martin oppose. That motion fails. We're just going to work that way, are we, Stuart? All right, fair enough. Councillor Parkinson has moved option 2. Is there a seconder? I'll second it.
Thank you.
I can second that.
Yeah.
Discussion? Councillor Day?
Thank you. That is way too long of a day for me. It's just, that means every Monday you're working for council, and that having everything on the same day is, so you're actually talking about having committee of the whole and council on the same day. So that means that you have no time to get input on the committee of the whole.
There would be a 2-week flip. So it would be committee of the whole, and then the council meeting would be that night, but that would be from 2 weeks previous.
Oh, I see. Well, I didn't get that from the report, but yeah, no, I still can't support that. It still seems like too much in one day.
All right, I'll call the question. Is there discussion? Sorry,
Michael had his hand up.
Michael.
I just wanted to point out that I'd already spoken against this particular option, and I would prefer option 3. And I would point out that before this term ends, I will be a septuagenarian and just not up to it.
Okay. You won't even remember there's a meeting. Yeah. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Logan, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Kobayashi, Day, and Baxter oppose. So that fails. Yeah.
I'd like to propose option 3. as
All
the
right.
preferred.
We're now on option 3. Councillor Jensen's moved option 3.
Second.
Is there a seconder? Sorry, Councillor Logan. Discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Day.
Yeah, I don't approve of the 2:30 meetings because that is, again, it just completely eliminates public participation from my point of view, even though I've done years of shift work, but most people don't work those shifts.
Hey, Councillor Kobayashi?
I've been staying relatively silent here because I think I am the most flexible, and I would just wanted to go with the flow with the majority, to tell you the truth. But I don't share that concern, I guess, because at one time when Colwood used to have the citizen committees, the Finance Committee and the Economic Development Committee, some of those things started in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 3:30, and we all participated. It was never a citizen issue showing up to those meetings. So I don't share that concern with this one, although I do understand what you're saying. But I, just in my own experience serving on both committees as a citizen, they used to tell me show up at 3, and I'd show up at 3, or 3:30, and I'd show up at 3:30. So I don't think that's such a big issue, especially with live streaming that we have. So I'm just going to go counter to this one here, that it is a viable option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Day opposes. Moving on then to bylaws. Bylaw number 1792, main sewer, 324 Lagoon Road, final reading.
Move final.
Moved by Councillor Baxter. Second by Councillor Jensen. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaw number 1793, East Sewer, 324 Lagoon Road. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, second by Councillor Logan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Michael, did you oppose? No. Okay, no, okay, thank you. Moving in camera. May I have a motion to move in camera? Thank you. All those, sorry, I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Logan and Baxter. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yeah, don't leave.
No.